Cody, are you there, sir?
Hey, Gavin, what's up? I'm here.
You are a man who can show the world how to make their own guns.
Not an especially important man after this week's news. I am like any other man now, and that we can all do it.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, you were in big trouble last time I spoke to you because you had published blueprints on how a 3D printer can make basically any gun.
Yeah, that's true. 3D printing was a good way to demonstrate that. The state didn't really have a good way to present itself as in the middle of that equation. So you could easily demonstrate that, hey, look, this doesn't require the state to interfere.
So they tried to shut you down, and they said, this is illegal, it's violent, it's dangerous. And then you came back and said, no, it's my First Amendment right.
Yeah, that's about it. The Obama administration decided, nah, we can probably control this. And after years of mixing it up, the DOJ ran away from it. It was a pretty bad First Amendment case.
And so, as of now, you've won your case. You can publish this information.
I've won. I can publish. But the more important thing is that everyone can publish by extension. Americans have the right to traffic in this information on the internet. Therefore, guns are downloadable for, I suppose, the rest of time.
That's incredible. I mean, I remember when you started, you had that weird-looking space gun that was plasticky, white plastic thing. It looked like a Smurf had gave birth to one of its sisters or something. It looked like an inbred sort of a Star Trek toy. And that I could see getting dangerous. But then you came up with your own sort of milling machine, and now you can build an AK-47 or anything.
Sure. And you don't need like my equipment, or you don't need 3D printing. Like what we've won here is a license, really like the latitude for anybody to share the data related to any type of gun to make it in any way that they want. So this is a victory across all channels, right? It's a total harvest.
It is amazing. Well, the two big things I think when I see you and your case and the victory here is, one, aren't you scared?
Well, I mean, I am appropriately, I don't know, prepared for, look, if the state doesn't like you, it will make that known to you. But this has been my life for many years now. I'm not, sure, I'm maybe naive in some ways, but then you can't accuse me of being completely naive. I know what it takes to fight and win in this environment. Yeah,
good point. You're sort of like the Hammonds there, the ranchers, where they eventually won. Although they only won because Trump pardoned them. But the ranchers, the Hammonds, was a case of the state not wanting someone to thrive and then using the law to their advantage to shut those people down. And they, up until very recently, they were successful. I did this research on all the deaths around Hillary, and as I was doing it, there was like 4 or 5 that I just couldn't explain away, and I started getting scared.
Yeah.
As I was doing the research, because I thought, am I appearing now on some like beep, 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 someone's getting too close? You're going up against the whole government and their whole obsession with guns. That's much bigger.
There's so many unfinished rooms and loopholes in large bureaucratic organizations where even at this point, the DOJ attorneys themselves don't really understand the arguments that are being made, right? This is the consequence of building something so large and terrible in its power. When you become such a specialist as I, even the judges don't know what you're talking about after a certain point. So sure, power operates nakedly. I understand that, and I won't be immune from that. But it's possible in this day to shame this power and to embarrass it even.
Oh, that's fascinating. Because it comes down to you saying, look, I want to make a little piece of steel that has 3 circles in the middle and 1 little divot at the top and a hole in the bottom third of it. You're saying I can't do that? Okay, what if it doesn't have a hole in the bottom third? And the next thing you know, they're forced to copyright every single piece of a gun and every permutation of every single piece. I mean, that's infinite.
You've got it. Think of the alternative scenario, which some of these gun controllers will probably howl about again next week. But does the State Department even want the power to police every gun file related to every gun on the internet? This is an overwhelming task, and I'm sure that they're almost grateful that it was concluded in this way. Power itself only wants to present itself as the sign of power. It doesn't want the terrible task of having to exercise itself.
Yeah, I don't think it would be even possible. I think they would start it. They did something similar, not even remotely similar, actually. They did something in the same universe in Canada where they said, let's just register every gun. And so it cost, I don't know, I think $7 million. And all these farmers show up with their 22s and they're writing it all down. And they start slowly realize we don't have the bandwidth to track all these guns. We have bitten off more than we can chew. Now, that's a tiny, tiny fraction of what they're threatening you with.
This was, frankly, this was my intuition from the beginning. Like, I don't claim to be an especially intelligent person either, but it was that could a police power, like they were suggesting those years ago, really become real? And I think the key to this case was being willing to challenge that power to become real, because I didn't think that they really meant it to. And I think facts are bearing out, my intuition.
That's incredible. So let me just get this straight. You have 3D printers, but you also have this milling machine that can do steel, right?
Sure, aluminum and steel, and yeah, of course.
And you sell that as a separate thing.
I do. I sold it to fund the lawsuit.
Okay, so if I lived in say Arizona, I could make an AK-47 using your instructions. What would that run me roughly?
Our platform right now is better for the AR-15, which is as popular as the AK. But that platform is, $1,700-1,800 all told, about as expensive as an expensive AR-15.
And does that include the machine?
Oh, that is the machine with the fixturing. Oh,
okay, because the actual tools and the actual materials, that's nothing. That's a pile of aluminum.
Yeah, it's really inexpensive. We're talking about each component less than $100, depending upon how complicated you want to get.
But if I've already spent the $1,700, I could arguably make 100 AR-15s.
I think you would know if you're an owner of our machine that is in fact the power that you have purchased for yourself.
So now my AR-15s are about $100 each.
I'm not sure about the unit economics, but there are plenty of our customers who've decided to go into business and themselves become licensed manufacturer dealers, whatever. That's an option. That's a route you can take. Of course, the real power here is that you have an industrial capacity to make whatever you want, and no one has to know about it.
Yeah, that's really the shocking part. That's the part where I would be scared to be you, because you're now wielding so much power. It's a threat to the real powers that be.
Maybe. At the same time, look, I'm no manufacturing concern. I'm no big industrial power. And I've given all these plans and this equipment essentially away, right? I haven't patented it. There's no copyrights involved. There's no trademark. Like, if you were afraid of me, you should have dealt with me a few years ago. You shouldn't have given me all this time to give it away.
They tried. But the fact that you gave it out, it kind of absolves you of danger. It's sort of like you've thrown the poison into the water supply now, but they can't get it out.
I object to the analogy, but
you've thrown the molly into the water supply.
You should have seen how absurd some of this got. We were literally in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals arguing about, well, if someone comes to a public library and checks out what I have in a book, how is that different from download? It was getting to some real angels on the heads of needles arguments.
Yeah. Yeah, that's inevitable. You were pretty smart to realize it's going to end up there, because I guess when you sit back, you sit in a lazier chair, you smoke a joint, you kind of inevitably end up at that conclusion, no matter which way you slice it.
I think if you hang around on the internet enough, like I know you and I have, you begin to understand things from an internet-centric point of view, and you understand that these social effects and mass media effects cut in particular ways. And so, yeah, it just seemed obvious to me. Maybe I wouldn't win because I'm particularly objectionable, but no matter, even if I lost in court, ultimately the internet would serve gun files for people. That just seemed evident to me.
Okay, so sorry to be pedantic here, but I need to get back to this this AR-15 I just built. So I'm in a state that's pretty good with gun laws. I build this AR-15. It's in my house. The police come by for something unrelated. They see it there. Could I be charged with having an illegal gun? Is that gun illegal?
Well, remember, like all good lawyers would answer, the answer depends on your laws state by state. Not every state has the same laws about homemade guns, but for the most part, the 50 states have nothing to say about the fact that you made a gun for yourself. So the question is often a question of federal law. And that question is usually, if you have the right to own the type of gun that you made, like if you had the right, you weren't a felon, and you could own a semi-automatic AK-47, then without question, you have the right to also make a semi-automatic AK-47.
Oh, I see. So if I live in Manhattan and I have an AR-15, they don't care if I bought it or I made it, I'm in big trouble.
Even so, in New York, there's the SAFE Act. So as long as your AR is SAFE Act compliant, this is often a feature test. I have to remember to tell people I'm not a lawyer, so this isn't legal advice. But
okay.
as long as your AR is Safe Act or whatever jurisdictionally compliant, even so, you can still maintain that weapon.
Because owning an AR-15 in Manhattan you're in big trouble. Or owning a handgun in Manhattan is a huge deal.
I have people that own our equipment and use it in Manhattan. You know, Manhattan only cares about its particular adjustments for what your gun can look like. This is the compromise we've made with gun control over the years. California, New York, Massachusetts, they've all got their own ways of saying, well, this is the legal configuration of this gun that you can have. It looks sometimes grotesque and different from how I would configure it in Texas, but essentially you still have the same gun. Dude,
this is huge.
I actually think it can't be overstated. I don't know what I expected, but this is the internet, right? This is guns on the internet. This is a ball game in many senses.
Yeah. I mean, it was the keepers of the gate up until this is sort of like MP3s in the record business or anything else where a few had all the power. You've totally reinvented. Like, this is literally going in the history books.
Yeah, probably. But what's ironic is I think people will forget this in part, and they'll just assume it always was this way on the internet. Right. And that's probably how it should be. I mean, because to a large part, there were always gun files online. Even while I was doing my lawsuit, there was a large proliferation of them. It's just, this is where we were at this point in the history of the internet. So it's nice to have also gotten official permission from the U.S. government. Thanks, guys. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah. Well, at least you acknowledged it, and it's on the books now. Okay, last question, and I asked this last time. Are you rich?
I got a guy here. I just heard you say that. I don't know what rich means.
Rich is when you get the bill and you take out your wallet and you're like, how much of this silly paper crap do you want for that? Is this enough? Is that enough? What, are you happy now?
I've been able to afford all the trouble I've gotten in so far. How about that? I think that's a good measure.
Yeah, that's pretty rich.
And can you afford to get into the trouble that you make for yourself and get out of it? And that's been a good test for me over the years. I'll say as well that, it was good of me and my company to decide to take Bitcoin 6 years ago. Ooh. So do with that what you will.
That's rich. That's the answer right there, buddy.
And there's lots of time for lots of people to benefit from this decision. And maybe what we think of as rich today isn't what we would call rich tomorrow. I'll see you on Mars, right?
Yeah, money's irrelevant at the end of the day. What's really relevant, what helps you sleep at night is when you have character, you have legacy, you have honor. And you must sleep like a baby because you went out on a limb here, you fought the law, and you won.
I know that everything is temporary, right? Like even next week, maybe they could decide to screw me somehow. But it's beautiful in this moment. And I guess all I can say is you have to have an extra rational form of diligence if you want to see anything happen. And all I can say is, look, I'm proud to have done it. I'm proud to have suffered. The U.S. government gave my life meaning because what would I have done? Just like had some empty startup and done nothing for the last 5 years? Like, I'm happy to have suffered in this way and contributed to our Second Amendment.
Well, we're happy you suffered on our behalf. We really appreciate it.
Man, not necessary, dude. It was a blast. You've seen some of my stuff. Like, I enjoyed every minute of it.
Well, right on, Cody. Let's have you back soon. And if you get arrested, I'd like to be in charge of your legal defense fund. Although you're rich, just cash in one of your Bitcoins.
Look, man, you run a company the way I do. I can't, I'm like Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, man. I can't afford to be down for very long, or it all goes away. But look, this has been an honor. I'm happy to have met you in the course of doing all these things. It's great. Like, this has been so much fun. Thank you for having me.
It's awesome, man. Let's hang out soon.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.